Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Coffee Talk, an offshoot of Crescent City Crime. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Brian.
Today, we are going to talk about the first official movie theater in America, which was right here in New Orleans. But first, we want to thank everyone who has been tuning in, and we welcome any new listeners that have decided to join us.
Welcome to our podcast and thank you very much.
And we also want to ask you to please make sure to take a moment to leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcasting platform. Hey, I got all those words out without stumbling. We're off to a great start. So, today our story starts when, in the late 1800s, a patent application was submitted in France and the United States by French inventor Louis Le Prince. The patent was for a device that could create the illusion of movement by conveying a strip of perforated film bearing sequential images over a light source with a high speed shutter. Thomas Edison and his assistant William Dickinson received the patent, and in 1890 they introduced the kinetoscope to the world. You ever heard of the kinetoscope, Brian?
I do believe I heard the term long ago, probably maybe when I was a teenager.
I know it's not really something you think about, like, oh, whatever happened to the kinetoscope? However, the device was designed for films to be viewed by one individual at a time through a peephole viewer device at I'm sorry, through a peephole viewer window at the top of the device. The kinetoscope was not a movie projector, but it introduced the basic approach that would become the standard for all cinematic projection. Not long after the kinetoscope was invented, the technology was further developed by other inventors, and in 1896, the Vitascope projector was invented by Charles Francis Jenkins and Thomas Armand.
French, of course.
French. Well, the French give us a lot of good things.
Yes, I sure did. We're talking about one of the greatest things, one of the greatest things ever that much of our culture centers around. We received from the French.
That's very true. Yeah. So later that same year, New York businessman William Pop Rock paid $2,500 to become the New Orleans distributor of the Vitascope film projector. So that's how that happened. A New York to New Orleans connection.
Wow, and that's let's see at that point.
Uh-oh. Are you in
uh,
trouble already?
let's see. Was Louisiana State? What year are we talking about here?
1896? Yeah, we were a
Oh
state.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay.
In the spring of 1896, Rock and his business partner, Walter Wainwright, bought the Vitascope projector to the Old West End Resort and Entertainment District, where they showed short films to large, enthusiastic crowds. After testing the waters, the men decided to rent out space in a former warehouse at the corner of 623 Canal Street and Exchange Place. So the building is still there. And for anyone who is curious to know, it is closer to the river, the Canal Street part of the river, and it's almost right next to St. Charles Avenue. It's not far away from the Canal Place shopping mall.
Right around the beginning of St. Charles, where St. Charles Avenue begins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Main Street, Canal Street, the historic and beautiful part of Canal Street.
Yeah, when I would have to take the streetcar to work, I did like going down Canal Street in the streetcar. That was pretty fun.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
where you're when you're there, you're in pretty much the oldest part of the city.
And when the couple of times I would ride my bike downtown, getting to ride your bike on Canal Street downtown is a fun experience too.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of room for bicyclists on Canal Street.
Well, I would ride in between the streetcar tracks.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you can do that too.
Yeah, and the advantage is that the streetcars tend to go slow, and they actually stop at red lights.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
and pictures from Canal. I've seen pictures from Canal Street from that time period, and there were uh, it seemed there were more streetcars and more people used them for transportation.
But these days, it's more of a tourist thing.
Right, right, and although there is, of course, still using it for transportation to get to the hotel you worked at downtown. But what I'm saying is that like there was, uh, at that time period there were more streetcars on Canal Street, and
Right.
the street the street that automobiles would drive on, the automobiles at the time, which were commonly called motor coaches.
Or horseless carriages.
Right. Um, there would be like I believe just like one lane, and facing the streetcar tracks, there would be these early parallel parking spots.
Huh.
You see,
Okay.
but you could say along the median, where you had the
Oh,
streetcar tracks,
but
but
around these parts, we call that a neutral ground.
neutral ground. Yes, although mainstream canal street, the streetcars was not really a neutral ground per se, that's a whole other topic.
That is a whole other topic. Yeah.
Because we're talking just businesses, we're not talking houses
Right.
that held immigrants that were literally being separated from each other with a neutral ground.
That's right.
Just to touch on that briefly. Um, and the pictures I saw, most of the vehicles were delivery vehicles.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, trucks. Essentially trucks used
And
to bring supplies.
and New
Businesses.
Orleans itself in this modern age is not a terribly big city, but you can't really walk from one end of the city to the other without it taking a very long time. But back then, when the city had not expanded, you could walk everywhere in the city.
Yes, so true. Yes.
And I do also want to make the distinction that the canal streetcar, is a modern version of a streetcar. The antique streetcars still run on that St. Charles Avenue route.
Yes, yeah, that's quite true. You have two different types of streetcars, right? There's
The red ones are the newer ones, and then the St. Charles ones are the green streetcars, and those are the original.
with wooden seats and all.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the red ones have wooden seats too, and I'm pretty sure they're like the same size. They just look different, like they have a different design. They're red, and I think, yeah, like the rooftop is like round, like it's
Mm-hmm.
got like a rounded structure. But they do have air conditioning. The green ones, the St. Charles ones, do not have air conditioning.
Which gives it more of that old school charm.
Yeah, if you want to
As you,
sweat.
think of it. When you ride in the green streetcars,
You're living just as your ancestors did.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. In a sense, it's like, especially if you don't look outside,
Yeah.
you're getting the same experience people did before, and at around turn of the century 1900.
Right.
Uh, so I actually hadn't thought of it that way before. It's funny. It's funny. It's basically putting two and two together there. Um, and what fascinates me about that turn of the century period is it's after the 1884 World's Fair that was in New Orleans, one of two World's Fairs held in New Orleans. Was 100 years later, the 1984 World's Fair, and it's a time period after the American Civil War, but basically after Reconstruction, when this is New Orleans after there's no longer uh, U.S. troops occupying New Orleans during Reconstruction, and this is before World War One.
That's true.
So, in a sense, the New Orleans is still healing from minor sacrifices made during the Civil Wars. Fortunately, New Orleans was taken without a shot. But it wasn't exactly a good period of time for New Orleans under the federal occupation. And this is after all that. A very, very fascinating historic period.
Well, we will get into these other things in other episodes. Trust me. Don't you remember I showed you all of the notes I had laid out, all the groundwork I've done for this podcast. Trust me, it's in there, baby. We're gonna get so we're gonna educate the people, not just on Louisiana laws and crimes, but also on New Orleans history too. See, this was secretly a history podcast all along. Fooled you. Okay.
And as far as like American history goes, the history of New Orleans stretches back before the country existed.
But I know, well, we touched on that in the previous episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get on with the topic because we really went sideways on this one, but that's okay. So the building that they used for the movie theater, they blacked out the windows with canvas and they filled the place with 400 seats. The seats consisted of used chairs and church pews. Which kind of sounds like the old movie pictures theater that we went to.
Oh yes,
where they had like the couches and the chairs and the mismatched everything. Yeah,
yeah.
I miss that theater.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Vitascope Hall opened on July 26th, 1896, and is widely recognized as the world's first permanent for-profit movie theater. And it played movies daily from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Admission to the theater was 10 cents, but for an additional dime, theater goers could look at the Vitascope projector that converted still black and white photos into moving images up to a minute long. It's amazing. Like it was only a minute long, and these days movies are almost 4 hours long.
I mean, just imagine the fascination.
I would have totally paid to go see that.
Because at that point, the only photography you could see was still black and white photographs.
And was this
called portraits?
And was this still at the same time when, if they were taking your picture, you had to stand still for a couple of minutes?
Yes. Yeah. And you see, people really didn't have a problem with that because to them that was considered a really quick portrait.
Yeah.
Because prior to these black and white portraits, which coincidentally had started right around the period of the American Civil War.
That's true, yeah.
Which of course, side note there, the American Civil War is the first war that was photographed for the most part.
That's right. I remember. Well, I know that I read that fact more than once.
Yeah. And there's an abundance of Civil War photography, and that's because it was new.
Right.
It was just so new. So, prior to taking a black and white, portrait, if you stood for a portrait, you'd have to stand for quite a period of time because someone was literally painting a portrait of you. Whereas, of course, like New Orleans aristocracy at this time, obviously everyone would have these portraits painted of them and hanging in their beautiful homes. And then so obviously this to get these black and white portraits done, it's not as expensive as hiring an artist, and it's faster.
That's right.
So people really didn't mind posing for these black and white portraits, and one of the trademarks of this was a flash bar called made by Graflix. Okay.
Huh.
And here we go into a little bit of Star Wars. These Graflix flash bar holders became lightsabers in the original Star Wars movie, Episode 4.
No kidding, I didn't know that. Yeah. That's cool. Okay.
Just like now, and it's one of the reasons why Graflix flash bars can be very expensive on eBay, is because collectors of photography collectors want them.
And so do Star Wars fans.
So do Star Wars fans who want to construct a lightsaber just like
Obi-Wan's and Darth Vader's and Luke's. No, not
Yeah,
Luke's.
definitely Luke's lightsaber that
That's
he
right.
got that was his father's. That's
Right.
definitely a Graflex
Because
flash bar.
there were only three lightsabers in that first movie, right? Luke's,
Yeah,
Obi-Wan's, and Vader's.
yeah.
Okay.
I think all three of them were made with one variation of the Graflex flash
Okay.
bar.
Huh. I'm glad you knew that and were able to bring that to this podcast. That's very cool. Yeah. Well, admission. Okay, no, I already read that part. The movie theater did not last long and it closed down just 3 months after its opening. Rock and Wainwright traveled around the country in favor of pop up exhibitions. The building that housed the theater is still there, but the story of Vitascope Movie Hall is not quite finished yet. Today there is a commemorative marker. Brian, and I'm sure that you know that the movie industry has a rich and colorful history. It's also fraught with complications, right?
Oh yes,
Well,
oh yes.
so the history of this marker parallels that. This is actually a really cool story. So, in as early as 1912, the local newspaper, the Times-Picayune, was asking for a commemorative marker of the theater, and here is where we introduce Ed and Susan Poole. Have you ever heard of Ed and Susan Poole, Brian?
I think so.
Okay, well, you'll probably recognize it when I tell you who they are exactly. They are internationally known film historians and archivists who currently reside in Gretna, Louisiana, which is not far away from the city. Counting their non Louisiana movie items, the Pools estimate they have 200,000 pieces of film memorabilia in their house and another 250,000 pieces in storage.
That's a lot of stuff.
Is that bigger
Yeah,
than the Steve Sansweet collection?
probably not.
Okay.
Steve Sansweet's Star Wars collection is gargantuan. It takes up multiple locations.
Like a warehouses and
Yes,
stuff? Yeah.
and cost Mr. Sansweet one marriage in addition to the money he paid. Yes.
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah. Ouch. I mean, I'm a Star Wars collector myself, but I would get rid of it all before losing my marriage,
Oh.
sweetheart.
And this is why I married you. So the couple stores one sheet and folded posters in museum grade archival polyester sleeves filed alphabetically by title. The movie industry switched to rolled posters in the mid 80s and the Pools store those in tubes. One of the rooms in their house doubles as an office where they do their film research. They authenticate items for auction houses, museums, and collectors. They're also the authors of 24 reference books, and six of them are devoted to Louisiana topics. They first submitted an application for an historic marker in 1996 to coincide with the 100th anniversary of Vitascope Hall. For unknown reasons, the project was on hold until finally, in 2014, so that's over 100 years since the idea of this marker was even introduced.
Hmm.
Okay, so think
Yeah.
about that. Like in 1912, the Times Picayune was advocating for it, and it was not until 2014 that things really started to happen.
Wow.
Okay, the Pools met Michael W. Domingue. He is he is a head of the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. And when the couple were making a presentation about their book, Louisiana Film History, a comprehensive overview beginning 1896 at the Louisiana Book Festival in Baton Rouge. So that's how they met Michael Domingue. Okay, so they were at they were doing cool film history stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks of Hollywood. You think of film history,
Mm-hmm.
but there's obviously other cities in the country that uh, that tie into film history, and right here we're seeing where New Orleans ties in.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when Michael Domingue learned the story of Vitascope Hall, he knew that it was important to preserve the history as best he could. The Pools and Michael Domingue were joined by Hollywood veteran Linda Thurman, who is the author of Hollywood South, Glamour, Gumbo, and Greed. And I love that title. She had met the Pools while researching a book about Louisiana's film industry. Through their combined efforts, New Orleans philanthropists Russ and Sandra Herman signed on as sponsors to underwrite the project. The project moved forward with the support of Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. Lynn Coxwell, who oversees the Louisiana Historical Marker Program, helped with the application process. Approved and purchased in 2016, the marker remained in storage for the next 3 years in a City of New Orleans warehouse while awaiting installation approval. Mayor Latoya Cantrell's Executive Office Director, Amy Rodenberger, brought the project to the attention of the mayor, who quickly appointed Director of Constituent Services Byron Corneliuson to expedite crucial last stages and move forward. The installation started in October of 2019, but was delayed by a need for further engineering studies. Once the studies was orchestrated and finished, and the installation of the marker was placed. And finally, on June 15th, 2020, the marker commemorating Vitascope Hall was finally put on display for all to see.
Obviously overshadowed by
The
what
pandemic.
we were going
Yes.
through there. Yeah, some movie history.
Yeah.
And it's and it's great that New Orleans is also playing a part in right now with Hollywood South, TV shows and films being done down here.
Well,
constantly these days.
What amazes me is you know where I grew up, and now like the place that I grew up at, there's a movie studio practically like across the main highway from where I grew up. And when I was a child, that was not there at all. I mean, it was empty lots.
That was a Walmart.
And it was a
when you were a
Walmart.
child, yeah.
But there was a Walmart. There was also like this big empty lot next to it that had been empty for a very long time, and now it's a movie
ranch.
Studio. Yeah, the ranch.
It's called the ranch. Yeah.
Yes.
And it is where the interview with the vampire television show is being filmed. As you can see from just driving on Judge Perez Highway, you can see the buildings they constructed.
Yeah.
It's right through the fence to the ranch. As for the French Quarter, they simply reconstructed buildings from the French Quarter for the movie instead of filming in the French Quarter.
Huh.
For the most part.
What channel is that being run on?
I'm not sure, but one thing I do know is that for actors and extras, featured extras, stand-ins, the costumes used for the movie are all run smaller sizes. So anyone who's kind of big, like bigger than medium to large size, hasn't been able to get onto that show.
So like everybody has to be a skinny blood sucking vampire.
Well, so it looks. But of course, everyone's going to look bigger on television, as always. Whereas some people wonder why it is. Well, I mean, it's because of a camera lens.
Yeah, it is because of a camera lens.
It just enlarges the size of everything, and we focus on people.
Right.
So we notice how people look bigger on television, which is where that phrase comes. Oh, you look bigger on television. It's just so astounding how much bigger you look on television. So I've experienced that myself.
Well, that's fine.
On the third episode of Claws, whereas I'm the guy who who
Well, no,
ODs.
you said the third episode of Claws, but you have to say season 4,
That's right.
episode 3.
Season 4, episode 3. I'm the guy who ODs in the episode and has to be. Whereas Jen Lyon does chest compressions on me. Niecy Nash gets the defibrillator, and
And she patted your belly.
yeah.
That's so cute.
After I get revived after the second shock, yeah, she patted my belly, and it was a lot of fun. And yes, my belly looked way bigger
Mm.
on that television show than it does in
It
real
did.
life, and I mean, it almost felt embarrassing, but it's
But
it's television, it's fun.
but you should also tell everybody how you were the only person who responded to that call. Come on,
Yeah, yeah,
tell the story.
okay, that's so hilarious. Okay, it was filmed at the Mardi Gras World Annex on the West Bank in Algiers, the other side of the river from the main part of New Orleans. So I park in the parking lot, and I'm walking to the parking lot, and I get a phone call, and it's one of the production assistants, and he asks where I am. He says it's 5 minutes till call time, and I said, oh, I just parked. I'm walking in the parking lot, and he says, "You want me to send a van for you?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm yeah,
I'm here. I'm
I'm
here.
here. I'm almost there." And he said, "Okay, good, because you're the only person who put in for this." And it's funny how the
The description of the job.
the description of the, how should we say, um
That's why I said the description of the job.
the the casting call.
Okay,
Okay,
that's it.
yeah, the casting call read kind of like this: um, white. Let's see, white, heavy set, middle aged guy needed to play a crooked accountant who ODs at a party. And so called on the set, it was called the OD guy.
Yeah, so Brian is the OD guy in season 4, episode 3 of Claws. Brian, don't give away any spoilers. We don't know who of our listening audience does or does not watch Claws. But I will say this: if you just want to go like watch that one episode and maybe like find that one scene without any other context, you can.
Yeah, it's right around the middle of the episode. And here's a kicker to that. Technically, I'm in episode 4 as well, because before the beginning of episode 4, they say previously on Claws, and you see some scenes from the first 3 episodes, and they even show you, some of my scene as well.
Yeah.
As I'm like a plot element.
You're a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Or maybe, or is that technically MacGuffin? I'm sure somebody can tell us if you're in our Facebook group, and if you think that Brian was a MacGuffin, you can let us know.
Oh yes. So, so I have to say, I mean, it's so much fun, when Hollywood comes to you, as your hometown, and you get a chance to be part of a television show or a movie.
Yeah, it is very cool. And I just want to say, if any of you are looking to break into the business, go just answer every call. You never know what you're going to get picked for. And that Claus episode was Brian's first thing, and it was pre-pandemic, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was
Yeah,
pre-pandemic, and we had to wait like 2 years to watch it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a long wait, but it was well worth it, because in the episode, the scene looked much better than I thought it was going to be. And I mean, I guess the hard work was worth it. It was, I mean, this doesn't usually happen. It was over 4 hours, including small breaks, and it was, including rehearsals, it was over 30 takes, which you're lying on your back,
On a floor.
on a floor, can get really grueling.
No pillow.
Yeah, between takes, the connectors from the defibrillator being, slowly, slowly removed from your chest.
Your chest.
Yeah, my chest. Yeah, and one of the makeup artists spraying spritzer in my face between takes and everything, and these days they're so conscientious about the way they treat people on camera. They're asking if you're doing all right, you're feeling okay, or you need a break.
Right.
And we had to take a break for Niecy Nash because Niecy Nash is quite the performer on the show.
She's amazing, and I want to have this recorded on the podcast for posterity. That woman's outfits and claws are amazing. Like they use, like, I don't think I've seen her look bad in anything.
Well, that's all. That's costuming.
I know it's
Yeah.
really good costuming
The
department.
costuming
Yeah.
department. That's their role.
Her and the girl who plays Virginia have the best clothes on the show.
Yeah. So anyway, so Niecy Nash actually hyperventilated during one of these takes.
Oh.
I mean, because her performance is amazing. How outrageous she gets.
Yeah.
And everything, and as much as we enjoy watching it on the show, it's even more amazing to see it performed on live on the set.
Well, yeah, that's great for you, and I love hearing the stories. I don't want to have to spend 12 hours in one place like that. I'm glad you want to, but I can't do it.
It does take patience.
Yeah.
And one of the problems you run into while you're waiting in the holding area, in some instances, which I didn't run into the problem with Claws, I didn't have to wait terribly long, and that's probably because it was this special scene where I'm literally performing with the principal actors and actresses.
Well, it's also a weekly show.
Yeah.
And people on weekly shows, like the staff and the crew and everybody, they boom, boom, boom. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's true. So, what I've noticed is, like, for movies and shows that are mini series, not a regular series, um, as an extra, you can wait as long as 10 and a half hours, including breakfast and lunch, without being filmed at all. And the longer you wait, of course, the more your morale might drop. But you have to be able to just pick it up and get alive. And that's the reason why they have those, what's called a craft cart, television and movie shows. It has a variety of snacks and beverages, and that's to get your energy back up. They're not giving these snacks just to be nice. It's so that
it's so you can be ready.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because when they call you up, you got to turn it on. And if you don't get your energy up and get into the scene, the assistant director and the director will both pick up on it immediately. And usually the assistant director, who's more hands-on, is gonna be the first one to tell you something. And if you're in one of these things and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm just an extra. Oh, I'm just gonna hang out here and stand around," and that you're not part of the scene, you're dead wrong.
You are part of the scene.
And
You're completely part of the scene. And yeah, and ever since Brian started doing extra work, I've been paying more attention to the background extras in TV shows I've been watching. And yeah, they're still bringing it. Like, do you know, for example, how many times somebody in, like, say, a Law and Order episode must have to walk across the street? Like, while the main characters are talking to each other, and maybe they're on the street and there's like a bunch of people in the background walking back and forth,
pretending like you're into something in regular everyday life, and pretending like you're not really in a TV show.
Right.
Because if this was real life, the main characters wouldn't be such a big deal.
That's right.
Truthfully. So that's how you have to behave as an extra, because you're helping to sell the scene. And yes, the director is going to give you instructions. The assistant director is mainly going to give you instructions. And if you're mailing it in, they're going to let you know immediately. And one of the last things you want to hear from either one of them is, yeah, you can go back to holding. And then the next thing is, get me someone else.
Right.
Okay, you don't want to hear that. It doesn't mean you won't work anymore, but it means you're done for the episode or the show.